Inside ADX Florence, How Prison Meals Enforce Control, Colorado, 7. They had 7 minutes to pull the tray back. No one understood why it mattered. The slot in the steel door was already open. A meal tray rested halfway inside the cell, untouched. Stay with this story. What happens next almost didn't get stopped. Officer Daniel Reyes stood frozen in the corridor, eyes locked on the tray. In 12 years working maximum security, he had learned to read small deviations. A tray left untouched past count time wasn't hunger. It was a message. He checked his watch. 6 minutes left. The inmate inside cell 3B hadn't spoken all morning. No complaints. No requests. No movement on camera. Just stillness. Too deliberate to be coincidence. Reyes signaled the control room, but the response came back flat. "Log it and move on," the supervisor said. "Meals get skipped." They always did, except when they didn't. Reyes glanced down the corridor. Every other food slot was already sealed. Trays collected. Routine restored. Only 3B remained open, like a mistake no one wanted to own. He leaned closer to the door. Inside, the inmate sat on the bunk, hands resting calmly on his knees. His eyes weren't on the food. They were on the slot. Waiting. Reyes felt it then, that familiar pressure behind the ribs. The sense that a system designed to control behavior was being quietly tested. He tapped the slot twice. No response. "Meal refusal?" he called out. The inmate didn't answer. He didn't move. He didn't even blink. Reyes marked the clipboard and stepped back, protocol forcing his feet to retreat even as instinct pulled him forward. The rules were clear. No engagement without cause. And yet, the cause was right there. At the end of the corridor, a red indicator light flickered once, a routine sensor check. It meant nothing. It always meant nothing. Until it didn't. Later that afternoon, during the shift transition, Reyes pulled the logs. Cell 3B's meal refusals weren't new. They were patterned. Every refusal happened on the same day of the week. Always the same meal. Always the same tray code. That wasn't preference. That was data. He brought it up in briefing. The response was a shrug. "Some inmates control what they can," a sergeant said. "Food's one of the few choices left." But Reyes' new choice wasn't the point. Control was. He checked the kitchen records next. Tray assembly was automated, barcode, standardized to the gram. No room for improvisation. No room for messages. Except one. Once every 9 days, the system flagged a substitution. Not an error, an approved adjustment. Nutritional equivalent. Same calories. Same cost. Different item. The justification line read, "Behavioral compliance incentive." Reyes stared at the screen longer than he should have. That phrase wasn't new. It had existed in policy for years, buried under wellness language and operational efficiency. But it wasn't supposed to apply here. Not to high-security segregation. Not to cell 3B. He walked back to the tier as dinner service began. Trays slid through slots with mechanical precision. Metal on metal. Order enforced through routine. When he reached 3B, the slot opened again. A new tray. This time, the inmate looked up. Not aggressively. Not pleading. Assessing. Reyes watched as the inmate inspected the tray without touching it. The barcode. The placement. The sequence of items. Then the inmate shook his head once. Reyes closed the slot manually. His pulse quickened. "You don't want it?" he asked. The inmate finally spoke. His voice was calm. Measured. "It's not about eating," he said. "It's about timing." Reyes stepped back as protocol demanded, but the words followed him down the corridor. Timing. Back in control, Reyes pulled historical footage. Meal times overlaid with incident reports. Movement logs. Staff rotations. A pattern emerged, faint but undeniable. On days when cell 3B refused meals, staffing was thinner. Camera coverage was reduced by routine maintenance. Supervisors rotated out. The food wasn't a privilege. It was a signal. Reyes escalated it. This time, the response was irritation. "You're overthinking it," the lieutenant said. "Food isn't leverage. It's sustenance." But that night, an audit request appeared in the system. Automatically generated. No supervisor authorization. Triggered by the meal refusals. Reyes didn't know what to make of that. Systems weren't supposed to question themselves. The next morning, the slot in 3B opened again. The tray was different. Same calories. Same cost. Different shape. The inmate didn't look at it. "You changed it," he said quietly. Reyes froze. "How do you know?" he asked. The inmate finally smiled, not with satisfaction, but with recognition. "Because now you're watching," he said. Reyes shut the slot and walked away, heart pounding. By midday, the kitchen supervisor called down, confused. "We've got missing inventory," she said. "Nothing major. Just inconsistencies." Reyes didn't answer right away. He was staring at the audit results. The system had flagged 13 meals over 6 months, all tied to the same inmate. All approved. All undocumented in the final reports. They weren't incentives. They were tests. Someone had been adjusting meals not to reward behavior, but to observe reactions. To map awareness. To see who noticed. And now, someone else had noticed too. Reyes returned to 3B1 last time before lockdown. The inmate stood at the door, closer than before. "You weren't supposed to see it," the inmate said. "Most don't." "See what?" Reyes asked. The inmate nodded toward the slot. Toward the tray. Toward the system that delivered it. "That food is the only thing that moves freely in here," he said. "Everything else is fixed." Reyes didn't reply. He closed the slot and keyed in for lockdown. But when he reached the control room and checked the logs, everything changed. The first mistake was assuming the food system was passive. The second was assuming it had no memory. By the time the night shift took over, the audit alert had already been quietly closed. Marked resolved. No explanation. No follow-up. Just gone. Officer Reyes noticed immediately. Systems rarely erase themselves without instruction. He pulled the logs again. This time, access was slower. Pages loaded with a delay that hadn't existed the day before. It wasn't a lockout, just resistance. Someone didn't want eyes on this anymore. Down on the tier, cell 3B remained silent. No requests. No refusals. The slot stayed closed through breakfast. That was new. Reyes watched the cameras closely. The inmate sat on the bunk, posture unchanged, hands folded. Too calm for someone who had just lost the only variable he controlled. At 9:17, a supervisor override appeared on the screen. Meal delivery rescheduled. No reason given. Reyes flagged it verbally. The response came back clipped. "Kitchen delay. Don't read into it." But he already was. At 10:02, 2 officers approached 3B with an escort order. Not disciplinary. Not medical. Administrative. "Transfer." Reyes stepped forward. "Transfer where?" "Temporary housing," the sergeant said. "Evaluation." Evaluation for what wasn't specified. The inmate stood when the door opened. No resistance. No questions. He glanced once at the slot, then at Reyes. "You missed one," he said quietly. "What?" Reyes asked. But the inmate was already moving. As they walked the corridor, Reyes noticed something else. Cameras were active, but not all of them. 2 angles that usually overlapped were dark. Maintenance flags had been added retroactively. Someone was smoothing the path. The transfer corridor felt longer than usual. Fluorescent lights hummed. Footsteps echoed with too much space between them. Other inmates watched through narrow windows, faces blurred behind glass. No voices, just eyes following movement. When the inmate entered the temporary cell, Reyes felt a sharp unease. The room was identical in size, identical in layout, except for one detail. No food slot camera. It was an older model. Never upgraded. The inmate noticed immediately. "They won't use trays here," he said. "They'll use carts." Reyes frowned. "How do you know?" "Because this is where patterns disappear," the inmate replied. Lunch came late. Reyes stood back as the cart rolled in. Stainless steel. Covered. Unremarkable. Trays were handed out manually. No barcode scans. No digital record until after delivery. When the inmate received his tray, he looked at it once and shook his head. Same response. Same refusal. But this time, there was no system watching closely enough to care. That was the mistake. By dinner, the logs showed something impossible. The inmate had received a meal. Accepted. Consumed. Except Reyes had watched him refuse it. The record didn't match reality. He pulled footage. The camera showed the tray entering the cell. The door closing. Time passing. No refusal logged. No anomaly flagged. The system had corrected itself. Or been corrected. Reyes escalated again, this time directly to internal review. The reply came fast. Stand down. Matter under administrative handling. Administrative handling was where problems went to disappear. That night, Reyes stayed late. He cross-referenced meal logs with staff assignments, camera downtimes, and escort schedules. A clearer picture formed, and it wasn't about one inmate. Food delivery wasn't being used to control inmates. It was being used to test staff, who noticed discrepancies, who asked questions, who accepted records over reality. Cell 3B hadn't been the subject. He'd been the instrument. At 2:11, an alert flashed briefly on Reyes's screen. System reconciliation complete. Then it vanished. The next morning, the temporary cell was empty. The bed was made. The tray slot untouched. The log showed a routine transfer back to original housing. Time stamped 3:04. Reyes checked the cameras. There was no footage. Only a gap. 7 minutes long. Exactly 7. He stared at the blank space, heart sinking. They hadn't moved the inmate to restore order. They'd moved him to see who would notice the break. And now the system knew. By midday, Reyes was reassigned. Not punished. Not questioned. Repositioned. Away from housing. Away from logs. The inmate returned to 3B that evening. Same posture. Same calm. When Reyes passed the Tier 1 last time, the inmate spoke softly through the door. You asked the wrong questions, he said. Reyes stopped. What were the right ones? He asked. The inmate didn't answer immediately. Then, who benefits when the record matters more than the truth? Reyes walked away without replying. Because he already knew. And because somewhere deep in the system, the food logs had stopped flagging anomalies entirely. As if they'd learned. And whatever had been testing the prison no longer needed to hide. The real error wasn't the meal adjustment. It was assuming the system was broken when it was only adapting. The truth didn't arrive with alarms or confrontations. It surfaced quietly, the way control always does in prison. Reyes found it weeks later in a closed compliance memo buried beneath routine updates. No incident summary. No inmate name. Just a reference to behavioral consistency during controlled disruption. He read it twice. The document made one thing clear. Nothing that happened was considered a failure. The missed entries. The unverified meals. The silence that followed each refusal. All of it had been categorized as data. According to the report, food delivery wasn't only about nutrition. It was one of the few daily interactions that reached every inmate, regardless of classification. Because of that, it was also the most efficient pressure point. Meals created expectations. Expectations created compliance. And compliance could be measured. The inmate in cell 3B hadn't disrupted the system. He had exposed how it corrected itself. When he refused meals, officers didn't escalate because the records said delivery was complete. The paperwork overruled observation. Once the log was signed, reality no longer mattered. The report stated it plainly. Consistency of record reduces uncertainty. Reyes felt his stomach tighten. The inmate's behavior was later referenced as adaptive resistance. Not defiance. Not protest. Just an outlier response that revealed a vulnerability. In a supplemental note, analysts concluded that continued refusals risked staff perception drift. Moments where officers trusted what they saw more than what the system confirmed. That was unacceptable. So the solution wasn't to change the food. It was to change access. The inmate was moved to a unit where meals were delivered mechanically, verified digitally, and no longer required human acknowledgement. No refusals. No questions. Control restored. Reyes finally understood the inmate's calm. He hadn't been trying to escape punishment. He had been testing which version of reality the prison believed. Later footage from an interview room confirmed it. Separated by glass, the inmate sat upright, hands folded. When asked why he stopped refusing meals, he answered without emotion. There was nothing left to show, he said. The interviewer asked what he meant. If the system can say I ate when I didn't, the inmate replied, then it can say anything. That line never appeared in the final report. What did appear was a recommendation to streamline meal logging across multiple facilities. Fewer manual checks. More automation. Less interpretation. Efficiency improved. Risk reduced. The prison didn't punish the inmate. It absorbed the lesson. Reyes noticed something else before he closed the file. Officers who questioned discrepancies were reassigned. Officers who followed procedure without comment remained. No discipline. No discussion. Just quiet alignment. Food had never been about sustenance alone. It was timing. Routine. Submission disguised as care. When Reyes left the facility for the last time, he passed the meal carts lined neatly against the wall. Identical trays. Identical labels. Identical portions. No room for deviation. Somewhere inside, an inmate accepted a meal without hesitation. Not because he trusted it, but because the system no longer allowed refusal to matter. Control didn't come from force. It came from deciding which version of the truth would be recorded. And once a system can do that consistently, it doesn't need resistance to prove its power. This could happen again. The changes didn't announce themselves. They never do. 3 months after the inmate was relocated, the meal wing at the facility looked the same. Same carts. Same stainless steel trays. Same routine timed down to the minute. To anyone passing through, nothing had shifted. But the logs told a different story. Manual confirmations were gone. Officers no longer signed off on visual delivery. Sensors registered tray movement. Barcodes confirmed placement. Time stamps replaced judgment. The system no longer needed witnesses. Reyes noticed it during a follow-up audit. His role had changed by then. Less oversight, more verification. He wasn't there to ask why things happened anymore. Only whether the numbers aligned. And they always did. Meals were marked delivered at the same intervals every day. Consumption was inferred, not observed. Absence of complaint was treated as confirmation. The silence was perfect. He requested access to the archived footage from before the update, the days when refusals still existed. The request took longer than expected. When approval came through, the files were incomplete. Segments missing. Audio stripped. Metadata overwritten. No explanation was provided. In the updated training materials, food was listed under behavioral stability tools. Not nutrition. Not welfare. Stability. Reyes recognized the language immediately. It wasn't new, just refined. Order through repetition. Compliance through routine. Control through predictability. What unsettled him wasn't the intent. Prisons had always relied on structure. It was how efficiently the system erased anomalies. The inmate's refusal had never been logged as resistance. It wasn't categorized as protest, hunger strike, or misconduct. It was labeled a processing inconsistency. And inconsistencies were resolved quietly. Reyes began noticing similar patterns elsewhere. Showers logged as completed even when water pressure failed. Recreation time marked available regardless of actual access. Medical check-ins verified through scheduling, not contact. Each process depended on confirmation loops that no longer required human acknowledgement. The system had learned something fundamental. Observation created friction. Automation removed it. During his final visit, Reyes stood outside a solitary unit redesigned for low interaction management. Inside, an inmate sat at a desk identical to the one from months earlier. A tray slid through the slot. A green indicator blinked. Delivered. No questions followed. Reyes wondered whether the inmate even touched the food. It didn't matter. The system would record that he did. Later, in a closed-door briefing, a supervisor summarized the changes in a single sentence. Predictability reduces liability. There was no mention of the inmate who started it, no reference to refusal, no acknowledgement that the system had once been challenged, only graphs showing improved compliance metrics. Reyes asked one final question before leaving the program. What happens if someone notices again? The room stayed quiet longer than usual. Finally, the supervisor answered, "Then the system will adapt faster." That night, Reyes reviewed his notes from the first day of the investigation. The anomaly, the missing confirmation, the calm refusal that didn't escalate. It struck him that the inmate hadn't tried to break the system. He had revealed its boundary. Control didn't depend on force or punishment. It depended on what was allowed to be recognized. Once the system decided refusal didn't exist, resistance lost its meaning. And once resistance lost meaning, compliance became automatic. Reyes submitted his final report the following week. It contained no accusations, no warnings, just a single line under observations. Processes now function independently of individual behavior. It was approved without revision. The prison continued operating. Meals were served. Logs were filled. Silence was maintained. Somewhere inside the facility, an inmate ate because the system expected him to. And somewhere else, another inmate didn't, but the record said otherwise. Nothing appeared wrong, which meant everything was working exactly as designed. This could happen again. If this story shook you, the next one will be worse.